Generative AI, it's fascinating, isn't it? You hear those words and think, wow, incredible potential.
Right.
But then maybe there's also this little niggle, like question about, well, how do we keep it secure? How do we handle privacy?
Exactly. That tension is real.
So when you, our listener, think about responsible generative AI, what's the main thing that pops into your head? Because that's exactly the area we're exploring today. We're doing a deep dive into how SAP is approaching security and privacy, specifically for their generative AI tools.
Oh, and it's so timely because AI isn't just some future thing anymore. It's, becoming part of our daily workflows.
Definitely.
Which makes it absolutely critical that we build these systems securely, ethically, right from the ground up.
So SAP has a framework for this.
Yeah, they talk about responsible AI having sort of 3 pillars: AI ethics, AI security, and AI compliance. Today, we're really zoning in on those first 2, the ethics and the security side.
Okay, good. Because knowing the principles is one thing, but seeing how they actually translate into, tech solutions, that's the interesting part for me.
Absolutely. For SAP, the baseline is really about preventing harm. Harm to people, to society, even the environment.
Makes sense.
And this isn't just a mission statement. It's baked into their processes. Think of it like a system of checks and balances for AI development.
Okay, so break that down for us. What does that system actually look like in practice?
Well, at the top level, they align with the UNESCO recommendations on AI ethics. Big picture stuff.
Right, the international standards?
Exactly. Then those principles get translated into SAP's own internal AI ethics policy. This gives concrete requirements for the development teams.
Okay.
A really key step early on is an impact assessment. Teams look at a proposed AI idea and ask, are there any major risks here? Any red lines?
Red lines meaning to stop, too risky.
Precisely. If it's a red line use case, it doesn't go forward. Simple as that. Other cases might be flagged as high risk.
And what happens then?
Those high-risk cases go to a dedicated steering committee for review. They check if the risks can be managed effectively.
Got it. So there's this upfront vetting process. What comes next?
So assuming a use case passes that initial check, it goes through the normal development process. But then before it gets deployed, there's a final check. An AI ethics policy self-assessment.
Ah, like a final confirmation.
Yeah, basically confirming that all the requirements were actually followed during development. And supporting all this, you've got strong engineering practices for security, keeping up with regulations, and advice from an external ethics panel.
That sounds pretty thorough. Now let's talk specifically about generative AI. It's powerful, but also complex. What unique security or ethical challenges does it bring to the table?
You're the kind of person who wants to stay ahead, especially, when it comes to your career.
Absolutely.
And the resource we've kind of got our eye on is Zequant AI's SAP AI Masterclass over on Udemy. Now, this isn't some huge, lengthy academic thing. It's designed with a very specific promise.
And it's quite a compelling one, especially if you're busy, right? Learn SAP AI in just 1 week. That's the hook.
Right, by dedicating maybe 30 minutes each day.
Yeah.
And focusing on practical, hands-on exercise. Because things are moving fast.
They really are. And if we zoom out a bit, thinking about your career path, having a solid grasp of how AI works within SAP, that could seriously set you apart.
Definitely.
It's about gaining a skill set that's going to be more and more in demand. No question.
So for you listening, this SAP AI Masterclass by Zequance.ai on Udemy.
Yeah.
It's positioning itself as a structured, manageable way to get relevant AI knowledge, specifically for the SAP world.
Now let's talk specifically about generative AI. It's powerful, but also complex. What unique security or ethical challenges does it bring to the table?
That's a great question, because the core principles stay the same, but Gen AI definitely introduces some new wrinkles. Take human agency and oversight the idea that humans should be in control.
Right. AI should assist, not take over.
Exactly. But with Gen AI, the training data is often vast and not fully curated. Plus, the models themselves, these deep neural networks, can be kind of opaque, hard to see inside.
The black box problem.
And another thing, these models can sound so fluent, so human-like, that users might just trust the output too much without questioning it.
Yeah, I can see that. If it sounds confident, you might not double check. What about fairness? Avoiding bias, that seems critical, especially if AI influences decisions about people.
Hugely critical. The aim is zero bias, particularly for anything person-related. But the challenge is that the massive data sets used to train these models can contain existing societal biases.
So the AI can learn the bias.
It can inadvertently pick it up and even amplify it. And even if the training data is clean, a user could potentially write a prompt that steers the AI towards a biased or, discriminatory answer.
So bias can creep in from the data or from the user's interaction. Okay, what about transparency, making these systems understandable?
Well, transparency has two sides, right? Users need to understand why they got a certain output, and engineers need to understand how the system worked to keep it secure and fix problems.
Makes sense.
But with Gen AI, the scale of the data, the complexity of the models, it makes true transparency difficult. Explaining the exact why behind a specific sentence it generated, that's technically very challenging.
Not a simple A to B calculation. And the last big one, privacy and data governance. Always a concern.
Absolutely paramount. With Gen AI, you worry about the training data. Was it collected ethically?
Yeah.
Compliantly? And then there's the risk that the model might somehow remember pieces of information from user prompts.
Oh, like it could accidentally leak data later.
It's a potential risk that needs managing, ensuring that sensitive input doesn't become retrievable output down the line.
Okay, so we've laid out the ethical framework and the specific hurdles with generative AI. How is SAP actually tackling these with, concrete tools?
Right, let's shift to the solutions. A key piece here is something called the Orchestration service, which sits within SAP's Generative AI Hub.
Orchestration service. Okay.
Think of it as part of their overall AI lifecycle management. It essentially acts as a pipeline, or maybe like a secure intermediary, when applications need to call out to a large language model, an LLM.
So instead of talking directly to the big AI model, you go through this service.
Exactly. And this service bundles several features designed to address those security and privacy concerns we just talked about. It's like a control layer.
Interesting. What are some of the key features in there?
We can focus on three main ones they highlighted: grounding, data masking or pseudonymization, and content filtering.
Okay, let's start with grounding. What's that?
Grounding is about adding relevant, external, and importantly, trusted information into the prompt that goes to the LLM.
So you give it context.
Precisely. You give it reliable context. This dramatically cuts down on the chances of the AI just making things up. Those hallucinations people talk about. It improves factual accuracy.
Okay, and how does that connect back to security and privacy?
Well, by making sure the AI uses approved, often internal data sources for its answers, you control the information flow better. It also boosts transparency because you know the basis for the answer. It came from the grounded data.
Right, you can point to the source.
And it helps with human oversight, too, because you're guiding the AI with reliable context. The example they showed, a support assistant was grounded with info from SAP's own help portal.
So it answered based on official documentation, not just guessing. Makes sense. What about the second one, data masking or pseudonymization?
This is absolutely vital for protecting data. The orchestration service can automatically find and mask things like names, addresses, SAP user numbers.
Personally identifiable information, PII.
Exactly. And also sensitive stuff like religion or gender. This helps avoid bias, like in an HR scenario, you want to assess skills, not demographics. But maybe even more importantly, it protects personal data privacy because that sensitive info just isn't sent to the LLM at all.
Okay, and they mentioned pseudonymization specifically, not just anonymization. Why that distinction?
Good point. Anonymization usually means the data is changed so you can never link it back. That's great for privacy, but you lose the specific context.
Right.
Pseudonymization replaces the real data with fake identifiers, but crucially, it keeps a secure map linking the fake ID back to the real data.
So you can potentially translate it back if needed.
Yes, if there's a legitimate reason. So in that support ticket example, customer details are masked for the AI analysis, but the support agent can still retrieve the real info later to actually contact the customer. It balances privacy and utility.
That's clever. Okay, and the third feature was content filtering.
Correct. This lets you set up rules to check both what the user types in the prompt and what the AI generates the response.
Checking for what?
For undesirable content. Things like harmful language, unethical suggestions, inappropriate stuff based on defined categories.
So like a safety filter.
Pretty much. In the demo, they showed how you could have maybe slightly relaxed filters on the input to capture raw feedback, perhaps, but still blocking really bad stuff like hate speech or violence, but much stricter filters on the AI's output.
Makes sense. You want to control what the AI says more tightly.
Exactly. And they also noted that the underlying model matters too. They were using GPT-4 in that specific demo setup.
Okay, so that support assistant example really pulled it together. Grounding for accuracy using help docs, pseudonymization for customer privacy, and content filtering for safe interaction.
Yes, it showed how these technical pieces in the orchestration service work together to create a more secure and responsible way to use generative AI.
We did get a listener question that fits right in here. Someone asked about SAP's responsibility for unbiased training data, especially since they might not train the huge foundational models themselves.
That's a really relevant question. Even if SAP isn't training the base LLM, their AI ethics policy still requires teams building SAP solutions on top of that to strive for fairness and mitigate bias.
So the responsibility lies with the teams building the specific application.
Yes, they need to use various techniques to evaluate and address potential biases in how they customize or use the model and the data they might add, like for grounding.
Okay. Another listener asked something a bit more philosophical. Do you think AI will ever surpass human thinking capabilities?
The big question.
Yeah.
There's so many different opinions on that. It's really hard to say definitively.
Yeah.
Right now, AI is amazing at specific, narrow tasks. But that broad, flexible, common sense reasoning that humans have, AI isn't there yet. It's powerful, but different.
Still more of a tool, less of a general thinker.
For now, yes. That seems a fair assessment.
And one last point. There was a question about seeing the tool not know an answer. The demo had a slight hiccup, but what was the takeaway supposed to be there?
Right. The idea was to show the power of grounding by briefly turning it off. The plan was to ask about a very new SAP product that wouldn't be in the general LLM training data. Without grounding, providing that specific new info, the expectation was the AI would likely say, I don't know, or maybe worse, try to guess and give a wrong answer.
So it highlights why grounding is so important for accuracy with current information.
Exactly. It really underscores the value of providing that reliable context.
So wrapping things up, it's clear that generative AI security and privacy isn't about just one magic bullet. It's a layered approach.
It really is. You need the ethical guidelines, the policies, and these practical technical safeguards working together, like the grounding, masking, and filtering we saw in SAP's Generative AI Hub.
And understanding both the why, the ethics, and the how, the tech, hopefully helps you, our listener, feel a bit more informed as these technologies become more common.
That's the goal, to demystify it a bit and show the kind of responsible steps being taken.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. AI isn't standing still, is it? It's constantly evolving. As it gets more capable, what new security or privacy challenges might pop up that we haven't even thought of yet? And how do we stay proactive, always thinking ahead to meet them? Something to ponder as we navigate this AI-driven future.